Karthik, do you have any sort of two pieces of words of advice for our fall 2025 applicants when they've shared a little about what they are nervous about?
I would just say don't worry about college right now. You have, I guess, a month left to just enjoy because it's going to get intense after this. So just deal with whatever nervous or like anxiety you have in a month. Like for now, just like enjoy. That's what my advice would be.
You're the senior in the room. I'm sure that they could use all the insights that you can share, Karthik, at this point of time. Okay, super. So it's 11:31. We'll get going. Huge welcome and thank you all for joining us today at our flagship annual event, which is Journey to College 2025. We have an excellent panel lined up for you. It's going to be a Saturday morning, well invested, I assure you on that front. As we bring you Journey to College, which is our event for the eighth consecutive year, I was just reflecting this morning that there have been so many changes in the higher education space over the last 8 years. Whether it's the boom that we've seen in the Indian education landscape with the liberal arts onset, or US colleges going test mandatory to again test optional to again reinstating testing. Many of them are reinstating testing. Changes in the UK landscape, also families wanting to now really consider colleges outside of US, UK, Canada. So through all these changes, I was just thinking if there's one thing that's remained a constant, it is nothing inspires students like their seniors, which is students themselves. And that's what today is all about. Today is all about students inspiring students. So thank you to our panelists for being here. Without further ado, I would love to introduce and welcome our panelists. Thank you so much, Ananyaa, Rachel, Karthik, Kritin, for taking the time, being here, and sharing your journey with all our future applicants. Can I quickly request you each to introduce yourselves? Let's start with Ananyaa.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ananyaa. I'm from Hyderabad and I went to Chirek International School where I did IGCSE in 9th and 10th and then the IBDP program in 11th and 12th. So I applied to Wharton UPenn ED and that's where I'll be going, hopefully, probably concentrating in finance and business analytics.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ananyaa. Let's go on to you, Karthik.
Hi, so I went to the same school as Ananya. I grew up in Hyderabad. I did the IGCSE board in 9th and 10th, and then the IB board in 11th and 12th. I was admitted to UPenn in the fall 2024 application season, so I'm currently done with my first year. And I will be talking about this later, but I still am undecided. So I don't know what major I'm going for yet, but I am aligning myself towards computer science and business.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Kritin.
Hi, I'm Kritin. I'm from Kota, in Rajasthan. I went to a boarding school in Masudi called Woodstock for 9th and 10th, so I did MYP. And then I went to a boarding school in the UK called Brighton College, so I did the A levels there. I've been admitted admitted to Columbia for the fall 2025 application, and I'll hopefully be majoring in mechanical engineering.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kritin, for that. Over to you, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm from Vienna, Austria, and I followed a gifted curriculum in a public high school here. And I also applied in the 2025 admission cycle, and I'm going to start at UPenn at the Wharton Business School in September, hopefully.
Fantastic. Thank you all for those introductions. That brings me to a quick introduction about myself and the Red Pen. I'm Sheetal Vora. I'm the Associate Director of the Undergrad Services here at the Red Pen. We are an independent educational consultancy based in Mumbai, India, but we mentor students all across the globe and have a team all across the globe, so truly global. We have been mentoring students with their educational choices for the last 14 years, and this video will summarize it beautifully. Can I request for the video to be played?
Thinking of completing your undergraduate studies abroad? You're in the right place. The Red Pen is a global education consultancy that has helped over 10,000 applicants secure admission to some of the world's most prestigious colleges. Our team is dispersed across the world in places like the US, UK, Canada, Europe, Singapore, and India, and has in-depth knowledge of the application process at selected international universities. Our consultants, essay experts, and interview specialists have graduated from top 20 global institutions, including Oxbridge and the Ivy League. And many are parents themselves who understand the journey you are about to embark on. We are also members of global professional networks, which give us access to admissions officers and updated information on university trends. And we pool our expertise and insights for your applications. Our track record really does speak volumes about us.
99% of our students have received offers.
We've secured over $45 million in scholarships and admission to over 15 countries, including India, the US, UK, Canada, Singapore, Spain, and several others.
Our students have been admitted to every competitive university in the world. Harvard, Yale, Brown, Columbia, Penn,
Caltech, Stanford, MIT, UC Berkeley, UChicago, Rice, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, LSE,
Dartmouth, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, Duke, Northwestern.
We offer all-inclusive packages and a la carte services for every type of application anywhere in the world.
College research and selection.
brainstorming and editing essays, and providing strategies for scholarships and letters of recommendation.
The Red Pen is a one-stop solution for all your undergraduate application needs. To reduce the stress of the competitive application process, start as early as grade 8. We help you discover your passions, explore extracurricular activities, and prepare for a world of opportunities that await you. Contact us today to reach your academic goals.
Thank you, Shagun, for that. And as we just saw that we have been in mentoring students with their higher education choices for the last 14 years. We've recently partnered with US News. US News is a US-based media house. And this partnership has not only helped us expand our digital footprint, but also helps us to bring insights, data, and intel from everything that US News also collates, and the best of it for our students. A quick glimpse into our fall 2025 admits. As you can see, our students have been admitted successfully to top-notch universities across the globe, whether it's US, UK, Canada, India. Can I request for the next slide, please? And before we kind of kickstart this conversation on the Ivy Leagues and how does one get successful in that, like we saw, today our panelists are going to be sharing what can one do or how can one be successful at the Ivy Leagues, which are synonymous with brutal admit rates. Why is it that the Ivy Leagues are considered so competitive? And the numbers talk it all. They say it all. The Ivy Leagues overall, again, Harvard, Cornell, Princeton, in fact, have not even, the previous slide, sorry. They do not even disclose the number of applications they receive, but going by past data, it is safe to say that the Ivy Leagues on an average receive over 4 lakh applications. That's the volume of applications that they receive. But what are the number of seats that they actually have? A little over 20,000. So let's do the math. That comes down to between 4 to 5%. And that's why, it's safe to say that the admissions is close to being brutal at these places. For families who are new to this process, a quick overview on what is the Ivy League. The Ivy League is a group of the oldest 8 institutions in the country in the US. They got together initially in 1900s for an athletic league, but over the years have grown exponentially when it comes to, of course, prestige, but more importantly are known for academic excellence, elite alumni network, world-class faculty, and uber competitive admission rates. But it's important to note out here for all the families that it's not that the Ivies, all 8 of them, are similar to each other. Each one of them has a distinct identity, a different kind of a student body that they are seeking. So our advice to families is always that identify and know the Ivy that you're really keen on applying to or aspiring for. Identify how is that Ivy a good fit for you, or how are you aligned to what that college is seeking. And we've tried to give each Ivy a brief identity out here, whether Penn, known for doers, students have actually done projects or built on their passions and know what they want to use the Penn education for. Or Dartmouth, which is all about collaboration. Yale, again, known for connector and collaboration. Columbia, more about the intellectual curiosity and thinking, because, that is the breadth and depth of subjects that they want students to dive into. So that is a little bit of the overview on the Ivy Leagues for families who are new to this process. With that, let's kickstart our conversations for today. I'm going to start with Rachel. Rachel, thank you firstly so much for being here, sharing your journey with us. But more importantly, I would love for, can we please shift to Rachel's slide? I would love for the audience to know that Rachel is, of course, a fall 2025 student. Her intended interest major is economics, and a string of universities that she has been successfully admitted to, starting from University of Pennsylvania, Brown, Stanford, Duke, Rice, UCL in the UK, and many, many more. So Rachel, my first question to you is, can I request you to share a brief snapshot, of your profile, academic and non-academic, for the audience to know?
So throughout high school, I went to the only high school for gifted kids in my entire country, which is Austria. And I grew up in a bilingual household, mixing many cultures. So this was definitely a very important part of my application. And my high school curriculum was very interdisciplinary. I conducted research early on and received multiple prizes for my research project about meat alternatives. And at the same time, I was very active as a community leader, both outside of school and in school. And I think that definitely showed the way I took initiative and also acted as a leader among peers and among younger children.
Fantastic, Rachel. Your depth and your passion in everything that you kind of, gave yourself to outside of school, within school, truly spoke about what a passionate individual you are, wherever your interests were aligned. My first question to you is, Rachel, that what about your extracurriculars in your profile do you feel really distinguished yourself and when that mile, when we talk about being successfully admitted to such a string of so many highly selective colleges?
I think it was definitely the diversity of what I did. So it was everything from athletic activities and preparing to be a ski instructor, from spending over 20 hours a week as a youth group leader, and organizing a charity event in high school, being a deputy student body president. So I think it was the diversity that still had the common denominator of being a leader, maybe even being a role model, stemming from the fact of me having 4 little brothers. And I was able to combine this common piece with my family history, my personal background, and I think this really showcased my passion.
Would you say that, your interest started as early on, say grade 8 and 9, and then you consistently continue to pursue all of this?
So I started with the Red Pen very late on. So I started actually after graduating because I took a gap year. And so for me, it was everything that I had done quite naturally. Of course, it had always been a goal of mine to apply to the US colleges, but it was something that I had done naturally already before year 8 even, and it was just a natural path for me. So nothing felt forced, nothing felt like an activity I had to do, because I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to truly be passionate about something. So everything came very naturally, and we were actually just working with what I had done and just making more tweaks to what I should additionally do, but everything was already something I had done. Yeah.
Correct. So absolutely. Like we always tell families, and especially families who are starting even earlier on, that it's about being genuinely passionate about what is it that you want to do. It's not about doing things that you just want to impress colleges and you think that is what an admissions would want to hear, because authenticity is key out here. And Rachel, I think when we were also discussing, you did share that you did start all of this at 9th and 10th, and you kind of showed depth over the years. So it's all about depth versus breadth when you want to showcase, how you're passionate about something. And just for the audience to also know that Rachel graduated really early from high school. She was a part of a gifted school, and she graduated when she was very, very young. And that's the reason she was on a gap year, and she continued to pursue her passions through that gap year. Rachel, my next question for you is that what part of yourself, your personality, do you feel you showcased through your essays which was probably not captured on the other components of your application form, but still connected to it in a really tight, cohesive way. Can you share a little bit about that?
So I think it was definitely my Jewish history, which I used to showcase a lot of perseverance, but especially showcase how important community was to me. And I think throughout all my essays, community was such an important pillar of all of my essays, as I used it when I was talking about my social engagement, when I was talking about high school and being surrounded by all of the gifted kids, basically, or about my family, which is a very important factor of my life. So I feel like this community and really having proof, almost showcasing my importance of community. And I think with everything I was doing regarding community building, community engagement, and community leadership, it was quite evident that it was truly a passion of mine, simply because it took up so much of my time. And throughout multiple of my activities, it was like the common thread, even if they had nothing to do with each other, basically.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. While we're on the topic of essays, you were successfully admitted to Brown as well, Rachel. And Brown University truly stands for the open curricula, right? So how did you showcase or how did you demonstrate that you are a good fit for a university that offers an open curricula?
Well, I think it was two things. First of all, my high school curriculum, as it was for gifted children, a third of our curriculum was electives, and those were very interdisciplinary. So I had courses ranging from marketing to biomedicine and molecular cooking. So I was really able to use all of my classes and my very interdisciplinary background to really showcase this passion of mine to not only be really focused on one specific thing. And besides that, I had conducted a research project about meat alternatives, which was a combination of environmental sciences, biology, psychology, and economics. And I could really use this project to showcase everything I'd learned about interdisciplinary learning, but also what it brought to me. And then also talking about my high school class, where I was surrounded by multiple Olympiad winners and seeing what them working together could achieve. So I feel like it was this very strong image of interdisciplinarity and everywhere where I had encountered it. And I think that was what truly helped me.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Like we tell families that it's important to show, how you are a good fit. And Rachel's true, interdisciplinary, everything that she had done in that interdisciplinary manner through her profile really showcased that. In a way, Kritin, compared to, and that's where we say, how each Ivy is, different from each other. So Brown is known for the open curricula, whereas Kritin, you are going in for Columbia, which is known for the rigid core curricula. So this is quite important and interesting to know that how different both the IVs are, right? Kritin, what was your research into the whole core curricula? We'll come to it, of course, when we discuss even with you in detail, but what was your research into the core curricula?
I mean, when I was applying, so I sort of looked at like because I was applying for engineering, my core requirements would be slightly different, and I looked at what all I'd have to do. And one of the reasons I thought I would enjoy it is because I was going for a very holistic approach. Like I wanted to develop holistically, not just become a very good engineer. And I think because in the core I have to do a bit of economics, a bit of literature, humanities, all of that. I think that's why I chose that's why I thought Columbia would be a very good fit for me because of that requirement.
Fantastic. So yeah, just for families to know, Columbia stands for core curricula. That is a very important requirement. So when families are doing their research, it's important to know that at Columbia, whether you are in Columbia College, whether in Columbia Engineering, there is a certain amount of core requirements, whether it's art humanities, like you see, or music humanities, or university writing, irrespective. They encourage and they want students to dive into the breadth and depth of these subjects. So showcasing intellectual curiosity through your profile, if you're aspiring for this kind of a university, is very, very critical. Okay, over to you once again, Rachel. I would love to know your thought process when it came to the recommenders and selecting those teachers for your letters of recommendation, given that you were on a gap year. So how did you go about that process in choosing the kinds of teachers that you wanted for your recommenders?
So this was definitely something I had underestimated. And when I spoke to my counselors, it turned out to be quite a big discussion. And then my parents also joined this discussion. So it became a very big strategy. And I think we spent over 1 month truly deciding and consulting with 1 million people to ultimately determine the perfect letters of recommendation. But I think what we took account is that, first of all, it's very uncommon to apply to US colleges from Austria, and there's not many. So the teachers are, first of all, not used to writing letters of recommendation, but also often lack the English skills. So for me, the English proficiency was definitely a deciding factor. Besides that, it was also my ability to still have a relationship with them as I was not currently in school, and how I could confer all of my, like, what I required for them to write about, basically. And I also tried to look at the academic standing of the teachers to determine that maybe if my teacher had a doctorate, that he would maybe seem a little bit more convincing and a little bit more experienced than other very young teachers, for example. So I think it was a mix of my relationship, my ability to provide them with a list of bullet points, maybe even, and their English proficiency, which was definitely a big concern for me coming from Austria.
Thank you. So that just gets me to the point that, you kind of filled out a brag sheet, and, for all our applicants, whether it's fall 2026 or, the younger students, your school does give you something like a brag sheet when it's time to request for letters of recommendation. So Rachel, can you share a little bit about what you kind of listed, those points? How important do you think it is to fill that brag sheet or that list to give to your recommender in detail? Why do you think that's important?
I think it's crucial because most teachers have hundreds of kids, and first of all, they lack time. Second of all, they don't know everything about you. And what I focused on doing was gearing. So everything I did in school, I tried to keep quite equal for all my teachers, except, of course, everything regarding the specific subjects and classes. But everything outside of high school, I tried to really combine with what I thought would resonate best with the teachers. So for a teacher who was very interested in my charitable engagement, I was going to mention this more on her brag sheet than I would have had on my math teachers, for example. So I think it's really about understanding your teacher, understand what they're really going to say, and also how flexible they are, if they're willing to work with you. And I think that's what truly makes a difference in the end.
Fantastic. And Rachel, I remember you mentioning that, the one very important thought process while deciding your teachers was that teachers who really kind of knew you, not only within your school community, but even outside. And they truly were happy to validate everything that you were also listing in that application form and talk to, future admissions about you as a person. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So I think almost all of my teachers were actually teachers that we had gone on school trips with. So we had spent more time with them outside of the classroom, or they were teachers I had collaborated on initiatives in school with. So they were teachers who knew me not only from inside the classroom, but definitely also from without. And I think especially teachers that you go on trips with, for example, you get to know them much better and they get to know you much better. And I think that's crucial, because I think in the end, you want to give the teacher the feeling that they truly stand behind everything they're writing about, and that they only confirm, basically, or even elaborate on the material you give them. And I think you truly need a teacher who understands you and also who understands your motivation. And for me, again, coming from Europe, somebody who also accepts the fact that you want to move away, that you want to go abroad, and who is actively supportive of this.
Fantastic. Ananyaa, did you have the same thought process while selecting your teachers for the letters of recommendation?
Yeah, so I agree with Rachel when she says it does need to be a teacher who knows you beyond the classroom. And that is something I thought about when I selected my teacher. So I actually got a letter of recommendation from my Hindi teacher and my economics teacher. So the reason I chose my Hindi teacher, which might sound odd because it has nothing to do with what I applied with, is because she was my teacher from 9th through 12th grade. And I worked on a lot of projects with her outside class, like Nukkar Nadaks, which is street plays. And we do a lot of like assemblies in Hindi. And I even did my extended essay in Hindi. So I feel like she really knew me beyond, the 3 Hindi classes a week.
Fantastic. And that's so important. These are such important takeaways for all our applicants out here, that letters of recommendation do not undermine or underestimate their importance. It is for the future admission officers, their way of really knowing you, what kind of a student are you, even within your current student body, because they are going through so many thousands of applications, right? They don't have a face to their name. But how do they really know you? This is one other component, and there's a lot of thought process that one needs to put behind this. It's not about just using or going for those teachers where you're probably just doing well within the class. Like Rachel and Ananyaa very rightly pointed out, it's about teachers who can really speak about your growth, who really know you, and can make that letter of recommendation more specific. Even in our Q&A, we have shared a blog link to our blog on secrets on writing a strong letters of recommendation. So please feel free to kind of go through that blog. My next question for you, Rachel, is that let's talk about interviews now. You interviewed for Stanford, Rice, Princeton. So can you share a little bit about, were these interviews online, offline, conducted by alumni or admissions officers, and what was that actual experience like?
So all of my interviews were conducted by alumni. They were actually a mixture of being in person and online. So I met with one in person, but there were not so many representatives around me. So ultimately, most of them were online. They were very informal, to my surprise. So once I even got a FaceTime call from a lady while she was doing her grocery shopping. Some of them were definitely a little bit more formal, like sitting down, the person was sitting down at the desk. And I think especially my Stanford interview, it was 2 hours long and we just continued talking and talking. So they were not as formal and they were not really adhering to a lot. I think you could really differentiate between the ones who were very adamant about sticking to the criteria, being very short and brief. And then there were the other half, which was quite, well, they were not sticking to the criteria and they were going above or not above everything that was required. And I think it's just about being really relaxed. And I think practice truly helps. So I think going through a few conversations with your counselors and then maybe even speaking to somebody you don't know, whether it's a friend or I don't know who, like all of those responses were pretty like in my head and I did not need to think. And this was quite useful for everything beyond those college admissions interviews because you always need this ability to respond quickly, to think a lot and to quickly find a good response. And I think ultimately it was a very helpful part and a very enriching part of my college admissions process.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Just along those lines, because you said, it's important to prepare for it. So can you share a little bit on your prep or, the number of mocks that you did or the kinds of questions that you prepared for these kinds of alumni and a little bit of these informal interviews? Because when families, of course, they know they have an interview coming up, it does get one nervous. So can you just give a little bit on, the format and how did you prepare for it?
Well, I think, first of all, I prepared through really crafting like a strong story and a good foundation with all of my counselors. But then it also came down to really adapting to the different colleges because I had not applied to the colleges with the same essays, with the same stories, and the colleges did not require the same thing. So what I usually did was do a lot of research on my interviewer, and usually they had a certain connection point with my home country, which I found to be very helpful in all of my interviews. And at the same time, I had multiple mock calls. Some of them were done quite passively during other meetings, and some of them were actually sit-down mocks. And I met over half of the team at the Red Penn in the end, I think. And it was really about learning to showcase your whole personality in a 30-minute call. And I think what was what the most important thing was about like learning how to introduce yourself, because every interview starts with tell me about yourself, tell me 3 things about yourself. And I feel like knowing the response to this and then having like, for me, it was having a certain backlog in the back of my mind of I'm going to talk about A, B, and C, because most topics can be added to many questions, and it's not really about preparing for a question, but it's preparing like certain story brackets you definitely want to share. And I think in the end, in all of my interviews, I could say what I wanted to say, no matter what the questions truly were, and no matter how open the interview was. And I think that was what I truly focused on learning, was to have blocks of stories instead of just being able to answer a question.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that informal interview experience, starkly different, Kritin, of course, which we are going to discuss when we speak, we share your Cambridge interview story, right?
Completely different. Because Cambridge is a lot more formal. Like it's like asking
Yeah.
academic questions.
Yeah, super. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing all about, your journey, your insights, and all the important takeaways. We're closing with an interesting fact on economics at Ivy Leagues, where it's important to know that, econ consistently ranks to be one of the most popular undergraduate majors across all the Ivies, because primarily, most Ivies do not have an undergrad business program. So econ serves as that primary pathway for students wanting to pursue careers in finance, public policy, tech, even business-minded students. So thank you so much for that, Rachel. And let's have the spotlight now on Ananyaa. Ananyaa, can I quickly request you to share a brief profile about yourself, academic and non-academic? Like we know, like Ananyaa mentioned, she is admitted to Wharton and she applied ED. So luckily you are all done and dusted by December 15th.
Yeah, that's true. I got very lucky with that. But yeah, coming to the snapshot, so I did IGCSE 9th and 10th and the IBDP program in 11th and 12th. So that was the academic aspect. And one thing about IGCSE was I did get world topper in economics, which I feel is something that did contribute to the academic rigor of my application, especially when it comes to the honors section. So that is something that I found benefited me. Non-academic wise, very similar to Rachel, I was extremely heavily involved in leadership positions in my school. I was deputy head girl in 11th grade and then transitioned to head girl in the 12th grade. And along with that, I also was the founder of the Chirag Business Club. I was on the secretariat for the Model United Nations. So yeah, I really enjoyed being involved in school activities, and I've been in the same school for my entire life. So I really felt like that involvement very personally. I think outside of school, I did do research on microfinance, which was an area that really interested me, and microfinance specific to the Indian rural landscape. I'm also a Kathak dancer. I've been learning Kathak for about 10 years. So yeah, while that was not like the highlight of my application, it's just something you put in because it tells you more about the person. So yeah, and I was also a debater. I, was top 30 debaters in India for 2 years. So yeah, that's a snapshot.
Super. You want to share a little bit on the Wharton investment competition?
Yeah, definitely. So I did the Wharton investment competition in 11th grade with a few of my friends who were also interested in finance and just like understanding data, analyzing stocks. And although we did not, advance to the next round, I feel like that whole 3-month experience of even understanding how to analyze which stocks you should invest in, learning about terms like ETFs and different things really helped me gain a better understanding of, okay, this is how like private equity kind of works. This is how the stock market works. So it's a good learning experience is what I would say.
Absolutely. So Ananyaa, my question to you is, which part of the application process, whether it was writing essays, selecting recommenders, or deciding between where to ED, RD, which piece of the application journey do you feel was most challenging for you?
I think personally for me, it would be writing essays because as a person, I do not like expressing how I feel. I don't like expressing my emotions. And that's why it was very tough for me to put all of that on a paper and then like having 5 people read it. It took some time for me to be fully comfortable with that. So that was definitely tough. But I think the process of, like the brainstorming document that's there in the beginning, to reflect and understand how I feel myself about certain things and understand myself better, that really helped me get out of my shell.
Fantastic. Rachel, even you mentioned, I missed asking you that you mentioned you had written over 60 essays. Um, how did you manage, your time around all of that and so on managing so many essays? What is your piece of advice for that?
So, I mean, I was on a gap year, but I was always saying I'm more busy right now than I was during all of my final exams put together. And I mean, even though I was on a gap year, I was definitely not doing something. So I was preparing for a big private equity internship just a month later. So I was very busy and I spoke to my counselors almost every second day at least. And for me, it was another factor that the time difference played a fact. And I think starting from August, where I did all of my SAT prep and then went over to all of the essay writing, it was definitely a very tiring time. But I always had the goal in mind and I knew like January, that's it, and I'm finished. And I think that what kept me going. But I think when I had to rewrite the 10th version of a specific Stanford essay, which was 50 words long, I was kind of not feeling it anymore. But in the end, I think it was both the motivation of my counselors and ultimately me saying, yeah, I'm just gonna get it done now. And I still think you need to find your own certain rhythm. So there are definitely some essays that you want to start writing immediately. And I don't think like keep all of the hard ones for the end, but definitely mix it up. And if you're not feeling it, start writing an essay and that seems more friendly to you. And at the same time, combine, if you have an idea, just write it down and you can put it into so many different essays. So it's ultimately about making an overview of all of the essays you have to write and then slowly working on it and getting things done.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, I hope these pieces of advice our current year applicants take really, really seriously, because essays are a component that most students will procrastinate and they will want to kind of, not look at currently, but that is the one piece of component that the earlier you start, the better. So back to you, Ananyaa. You decided to apply ED, right, to Wharton. Now, ED, like we all know, is a binding commitment, something that you are deciding and committing to across all the universities across the world. So what are the various sources that helped you identify which college you want to ED, and, what was that final nailing factor?
So I think the first thing, obviously, that comes to my mind is the college website itself, where you can get an understanding of, what this college is. But I feel like in addition to just the website that you pick, suppose you type University of Pennsylvania, you'll get the main link. But I feel like when you really go deeper, there's a lot of like smaller things and a lot of separate websites that you will not directly see when you go to research about the college, that you really need a deep dive and find, understanding the professors there, what work they do. Is there something I resonate with? I think that is also a few resources that really helped me. But I think for me, the resource that was the most helpful was actually students going there. So one of like my seniors at Wharton, I'm friends with her, and I remember this night very clearly. I was split between Duke, the College of Arts and Sciences at Penn, and Wharton. And I was like, okay, I cannot delay this any further. I have to decide where I'm eating tonight. I will call her. Whatever she says, I will do. So I called her, and she was like, if there's even 5% of you that wants to go to Wharton, just leave everything else, apply to Wharton. I was like, okay, done. It's decided.
So again, it was a student that swung the needle for you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I keep saying, that's the whole purpose even of, the goal behind Journey to College, that it's students' experiences, students' advice. And I'm constantly telling our current year applicants also that if you really want to know a college inside out, connect as much as possible with current year students or just recent alumni to really kind of identify, are you the right fit? Because it really comes down to fitment. Karthik, you've been at Penn for a year. Do you feel that, Penn is the right fit for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Penn is kind of like home now. The one thing that I'll say is that uh I was a debater, so my entire life, kind of since ninth grade, was in that debating community. And Penn is known for admitting a lot of debaters. And so at Penn, they're like the most number of world schools debaters than any other Ivy League. So these are friends who I've known before I even got there. And they're some of my good friends. So it's great that I go to Penn because I have all these friends.
Fantastic. Because we keep telling families it's so important to identify the right fit over just identifying that these are the brands or, these are the colleges that I've just heard of and I kind of want to go to. Ananyaa, over to you in terms of writing supplemental essays. So everything that you mentioned, of course, I think the sources to really know what in probably helped you a long way in writing those supplemental essays. But any other resources that you can advise students should look into when tackling those supplemental essays?
So I feel like it really depends on what the essay is asking from you. If it is a college-specific essay, I think they do expect you to have a very detailed understanding of what exactly it is that you're going to this college for academically, and also not it could be an academic specific essay or even just a community essay, but they expect you to really like know the school very well. And if it were an academic essay, like I said, very specifically on the courses that you're interested in, on the professors that deliver those courses, if there's any research that you have done that they have been involved in, and how you can actually further that when you go there. I feel like things like that really help when you're writing about academic college specific essays. And I know Penn had a community essay, and I feel like when I was writing my community essay, I did not think too much about it. I genuinely was like, if I was at Penn right now, what would I be doing outside of my classes? That's the way I looked at it. And then you go see the different clubs that are there, the different associations, where the college is located as well, like the city. Like, so for instance, I looked at what is there in Philly that I can actually go and do. So for a community question, I feel like that's very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, this is great insight. These are great insights for all our future applicants, that for writing impactful supplemental essays as well, deep research, whether it's online, offline, is required, and then helps you identify how are you a good fit for that college. What is it that you've done in your profile, academically or non-academically, that helps you, showcase that, yes, this is why, that college is a great fit for you. And that is what that narrative for that essay needs to be. Okay. One last question for you, Ananyaa, that, when students are preparing for these highly selective colleges and Ivy Leagues, what is your piece of advice that current year applicants should look into?
I think I'd say two things, and it might sound very cliched, but I found it very relevant when I was submitting my applications. I think one is stay authentic. Like, I think it's what Rachel said as well, right? Nothing should feel forced. If you're doing something just for the sake of college applications, you should not necessarily be doing it. You have to enjoy it. And I think you should present yourself as you are. And also because I feel like admissions officers have done, like, this is their bread and butter. They've done this forever. I think they kind of know if you do not present yourself authentically. So that one would be just stay true to yourself, for yourself, right? And second, I would say is follow your gut instinct. If an essay does not feel right, rework it. If a college does not just feel like a right fit, don't apply to it. And that doesn't mean you just get carried away by your emotions. Of course, you have to be strategic about it, calculate it, think about it. But at the end of the day, if you're not feeling right about something, don't go ahead with it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ananyaa, for sharing that. And that's absolutely so, so true. Authenticity, like I'm saying again, is key. Admission officers can smell it, sniff it from a mile away when you are trying to fluff through things. And you may get away by just putting that on pen and paper, but when there are times for interviews or through your essays, they will connect it. They are seeing you in a very holistic way over the 4 years of your undergrad high school, over the 4 years of your high school. So they're really connecting all the dots, whether the courses that you've taken, the grades that you've got, the contribution within school, extracurricular. So they're seeing you in a complete 360-degree realm. So authenticity is key. Okay, so with that, we will move on to Kritin, and we'll like to kind of, share a little interesting fact on business. Just important to know that across all the 8 Ivy League schools, there are only 2 of them that actually offer business as an undergraduate degree. That's Penn and Cornell. Penn, of course, is home to the world-renowned Wharton School, and Cornell offers 2 specialized major business programs through the Johnson College of Business, the Dyson and the Nolan. So yes, business is not an undergrad major that's offered across all 8 Ivies. Okay, thank you so much. Let's move on to Kritin. Kritin, thank you firstly for taking the time for being here. Would love to kind of showcase that Kritin was in a boarding school in the UK. Intended interest is mechanical engineering, and he has been admitted to University of Cambridge, Columbia, Dartmouth, GTech, Northwestern, Duke, UVA, and many more. So Kritin, firstly, how did you manage the whole UK process, which is the Cambridge is another different ballgame altogether, and the US? But before we dive into that, can you share a brief snapshot about yourself academically and the non-academic part?
Yeah, so academically, in my A-levels, I was predicted 4 A stars in physics, maths, further maths, and economics. Those were my A-levels. For my SAT, I had a 1540, and I got it first. I did it at the end of 10th grade. And then sort of non-academic, I had founded a non-profit organization in Kota to provide holistic education that I had in my boarding school to schools here as well. I had a school leadership, so I was dorm president in my own school in 9th and 10th in Woodstock. Then I headed a few clubs. I founded a space settlement design club at Breton College. And that was a major theme throughout my profile. The space settlement aspect that was my long-term goal, and I'll talk about that later. Then I had a few internships. So, and then I think what made them unique was, so I had an internship at a research facility, but then after that, because that was only 2 weeks, I did another research paper following on from that independently. And then I had an internship at a stone processing factory, but then after that, I developed a dust collection device because I saw that the workers there had health impacts because of the dust exposure. And I'd also created an energy literacy awareness course. And yeah, that was.
Fantastic. So when it comes to engineering, and of course that's true for all interests, but it's all about show, don't tell. So even for engineering, future aspirants and applicants, it's important to show colleges what have you done with that knowledge, what have you actually created, because engineering is one of the most competitive applied to pool, and it's just so important and critical to show how have you demonstrated that interest by creating a few things. Kritin, can you share a little bit and elaborate a little bit on the dust solution product that you were developing, and how did you showcase your passion in engineering through that?
So I'd done an internship at the stone processing factory nearby, and that was only 2 weeks. That was about like just learning about machines and things like that. But then there I'd spotted that the workers were working very closely with the machines, and although the area was open, there were purifiers that met all the industry conditions, they were still exposed to the dust, and that was the main problem, like the main health challenge they faced. And so, well, honestly, I tried to do as much as I could. And so after that, I worked with TRP and an organization called Omotech to develop a dust collection device that would work in that small scale, because air purifiers that come right now, that large scale. And I think this showed that this showed my incentive to help the community around me, but also it showed that I was willing to apply my learnings to develop something that would help my community.
Absolutely. In fact, this not only shows, your community engagement, this is thought leadership. We always tell students that identify anything around you that you see as a problem. It could be something really, really small. And then work towards showing that how you're trying to be solution oriented, how you are identifying on thinking around how to address that problem. Because that is what colleges love to see, that you are being that thought leader, you're taking that initiative, you're being observant about what is an issue, and you're working towards that. And Kritin, I think that is another very important component of your application. Okay. Going on to Kritin, you applied to two Ivies. You were admitted to two Ivies, and of course, you applied to Dartmouth and Columbia. Columbia is known for its core curricula. So, how did you approach, and how did that influence you while coming down to, finally, which is the Ivy that you want to kind of go to?
So I'll talk about like Columbia and Dartmouth. So Columbia, I was so the core curriculum was one thing I was looking at. So and I already talked about that because like I wanted that
Yeah.
holistic approach. And the other bit was New York, because the opportunities there for engineering and all other majors would be like unparalleled anywhere around the world. The work opportunities, the internships, and then there was also right next to Columbia, there's like a NASA center and my long-term goal was to start a space settlement or like a space related business. Um, so that was another major factor when I was deciding Columbia. I was still like confused because Dartmouth is still a very good college. And then the one thing that was pulling me towards Dartmouth also was this thing that's unique to them that's called the D plan.
Yes.
And that's basically where you can like sort of choose which quarters you want to stay on campus, which quarters you want to stay off when you want to take your holidays, because that would allow you to sort of like take longer internships, give you more flexibility around that. Um, and because that might have provided me with more opportunities, I was still leaning towards Dartmouth. But in the end, New York and Core did me over.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. So again, like we are telling families that, every university, every Ivy has its own unique identity or, unique offering. The D plan for Dartmouth is very, very important. And, families aspiring to apply to Dartmouth should look into this for sure, because it gives you a certain level of flexibility in kind of charting your way. Okay, Kritin, for you, the next question is that let's come to the Cambridge experience. Can you share a little bit on your interview process? And that'll help families understand how that process, that interview experience is starkly different from the other interview processes, whether it's US, India, Canada, all of that.
So Cambridge has 30 colleges, and the interview process is slightly different depending on which college you apply to. I've done an open application, which means whichever college has less applicants, they take me. So I was allocated to Lucy Cavendish. For engineering, I had two interviews. I know some people who had three and some who had one. Again, it just depends on the college. And so the entire process, so I gave the entrance exam. That's for natural sciences and engineering. That's called the ESAT in mid-October. I got my result end of November, and that's when I got my interview offer. I had started preparing before I got my offer for interview, because they can give you only like 1 week of notice. So you get your offer and your interview offer, and then you have to give your interview in 1 week, which isn't enough time. I had about 15 or more mock interviews. So that was with TRP, that was with my school teachers, and then like just like friends and all as well. And then along with that, I also practiced a lot on my own. So I used Isaac Physics, I used websites and like books by Cambridge, and just trying to solve all these questions. And I think the key was speaking out loud when I'm trying to solve these questions.
Can you share that example that you shared, when we were discussing? Because it will be great for families to actually understand that how the questioning process and how they, how are they expecting responses. Like you very rightly mentioned, it's about talking aloud and talking through your thought process. It's not about having the right or the wrong answer, but how are you kind of logically coming to that? Is that what they're assessing? So can you share a few examples on what exactly, how did you handle that?
Yeah, exactly. So like the sort of questions, like they won't ask you like very normal questions, because one of the questions they asked me was like, um estimate the volume of a banana, and it wasn't and like in the end, the answer was you have to model it as a sine wave and then apply some operations. And so it just you have to think creatively and you have to be a bit courageous when you're speaking out loud, like thinking out loud, like because even if it sounds stupid in your head, you just have to say it out loud because they want to understand how you think and they want you to think creatively. The two things they're looking for, I think.
Fantastic. And you also mentioned that, you were interviewed by faculty from the same college or different colleges?
Um, so it normally depends on the college, but I think so. I had two interviews, and in each interview there were two people, and at least one was from my college, and then one from another college.
Okay, fantastic. And what is your advice when students are going to be preparing for, Oxford, that's Oxford or Cambridge interviews? What is the timeline that you would suggest they start with, prepping with these interviews? Because it's a very, very critical component of the application process to Oxbridge.
So I was applying US as well, and so I didn't have a lot of time, before like October because I was or like the early round. If you aren't applying US, to start as soon as possible. Because you can't ever have enough practice. You always the more practice you have, the better your interview would go. Um, but otherwise, as soon as your application and your US applications, and I didn't take a break because I started preparing for Cambridge because that was just the next big thing. And the advice I would give in terms of what to do. So one thing is just to have as many mock interviews as possible because that would give you the courage to speak out loud, and I think that is the main thing. Right? Like if that's a
Absolutely.
yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kritin, your advice on preparing for the ESAT. So just for our families, who are aspiring for UK, because many of the UK colleges have introduced, testing as admission requirements. But of course, Oxford and Cambridge have their requirements for various subjects. Kritin, you prepared for the ESAT, which is the Engineering Sciences Aptitude Test. Your advice to future applicants that when does one need to start prepping for this, and how did you prep for it?
So I started prepping for it in the summer, before, uh, and I think so. In this, I think the key is that because the questions aren't particularly very difficult, it's the speed that matters. Um, and always, I think in practice, you'll be a bit faster than what you are in the actual thing. So I think one strategy that was successful for me and for others was that instead of time, so I think it's about like one question, 1.2 minutes per question. Instead of timing yourself according to that, just make yourself more time pressured, like like 1 minute per question or something. Like because you want to be very, very fast, as fast as possible, and try to have time to recheck.
Fantastic. So thank you so much again for sharing that. It's all about practice early. I mean, start practicing early so that you're able to manage the time component. Can you tell us a little bit about your EPQ, which is of course your extended project qualification? So for families who are in the A-level curricula or aspiring to take the A-level curricula, your EPQ is something optional. But when you're applying or you're aspiring to apply to the highly competitive colleges or Oxford or Cambridge, it'll be advisable to kind of look into the EPQ. So Kritin, over to you for sharing a little bit about your EPQ.
Yeah, so the EPQ is like a 5,000 word essay or like research paper, or it could be like you develop a product and then write 1,000 words for that. I did the 5,000 word research paper, and it was about analyzing spacecraft designs to reduce space debris and then proposing a general idea of my own one. And I think this was very crucial for my application as well for UK and US. Because firstly, because it's optional, it shows incentive to pursue your interests. And for the UK, the entire UK person statement is literally, and what Oxbridge is looking for is for you to like do activities that will make you learn more about what you want to major in, and the EPQ is the little definition of that. And by doing that, you show that you're taking up the opportunities that your school provides you with and what your board provides you with. So I think it was really important.
Absolutely. So again, thank you so much for sharing that, Kritin, for all our future applicants. EPQ showcases, of course, research skills, critical thinking, the fact that, you've taken the initiative to dive deeper into a passion that you really kind of, as Kritin said, you want to showcase, and gives you so much more to support when you're writing essays or you're writing your personal statement, because through all of that, you're also trying to showcase that what have you done to know more about the subject that you wish to kind of pursue at your college level. Okay, super. Thank you so much, Kritin, for sharing the US application side of the process and the UK. And it's amazing and it's incredible how you managed it all. So moving on to Karthik. Yes, thank you so much, Ragul, for sharing that. Again, in our Q&A, we're sharing a blog on how to write a strong personal statement. Please do refer to the Red Pen blog, because we have many interesting and current relevant topics, whether it's also about the new changes that the UK application process has introduced. So our blogs really do help you to stay updated and abreast with all the ever-changing landscape. So with that, we will move on to Karthik, closing with an interesting fun fact on engineering traditions across Ivy Leagues. So just interesting to know whether it's Cornell, Columbia, or Penn, the fun facts on engineering students, whether helping rival architecture students build and parade a giant dragon across campus, or Columbia follows games like the egg drop and Professor Pie eating contest, or Penn following a tradition on elaborate machines to complete simple tasks in creative ways. So just closing that with a fun fact before we move on to our rising sophomore, the senior in the room today, who's going to help us understand what it is and insights on studying at an Ivy League. Again, your intended major is not econ, Karthik. I think this is what I think initially we had, but like you mentioned, you're leaning towards computer science. That's the beauty of being in liberal arts colleges. You've got the flexibility to maneuver yourself. Karthik was admitted to University of Pennsylvania, UCLA, UC San Diego, UNC Chapel Hill, and many more. He's completed his freshman and a rising sophomore. So my first question to you, Karthik, on a fun note, if Penn had to be described as a person, what is that one word you would use to describe Penn as a person? Didn't mean to put you on the spot here.
I mean, it would be really hard to describe it with just one word. I guess it would be cliche to say it's like amazing, I guess. I mean, it is a university that has a lot of students. I think a lot more students than some of the other Ivy Leagues. So it feels like a big high school, something which I didn't get to experience because I had a cohort of only like 90 kids in school. So it's a huge university. There's so many students who do everything from nursing to business to engineering to like arts and sciences.
Okay, fantastic. Karthik, can you share a brief snapshot about yourself? Your academic profile, non-academic profile, that definitely went a long way in seeing you successful at your dream universities.
Right. So like Ananya, I did IGCSE and I got all these stars. I then did IB and my higher level subjects were physics, economics, and mathematics. I applied for like economics and but mainly like for like political science related majors like because I thought that that was what my activities aligned with, even though my I guess my subjects weren't exactly the same as the major that I applied for. I did do my extended essay in history, even though my school didn't offer the subject. So that was something that my teachers did talk about as like an example of me going above and beyond to like quench my intellectual desires. As far as I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the remaining part of the question? So my activities. So I have debated for Team India since I was in 8th grade. So that's the 5 members that they send to international debate competitions. So I represented my country. And I was the like I represented India for the most number of times in history, which is like 4 times. And we went to Vietnam, we went to Thailand, we went to London, Oxford, and we ranked first in the world, our team in 2023, and I won some other tournaments. So a lot of my like I guess my main activity was debating. But apart from that, I did a lot of animal welfare activism. So I was really happy when I heard that Rachel was talking about meat alternatives research because I did a lot of basically like blogging and podcasting with activists where I would just ask them questions. And I even worked for a lawyer who was suing KFC for animal cruelty on the factory farms. Uh, that produced like rotisserie chicken. So some of those were some of my other activities, and I remember the admissions officer wrote me a note after I got in saying that she was really inspired by the journey that I had in animal welfare activism.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Karthik. Yes, your debating was absolutely incredible. The depth that you pursued that. What is that one unsaid rule about Penn that only Penn students know? You need to share that secret with all of us today.
An unsaid rule. I guess the unsaid rule is just that you need to be kind of on your feet all the time. It is a place where you can kind of get lost because there's just so much to do, and there's this pressure. I guess a lot of people talk about pre-professionalism, where a lot of people want to get into finance, want to get into consulting, and so you kind of have to navigate that tide, where you have to make that decision where like, are you going to go along with everyone else? Or are you going to do something completely different? And so that's a choice that I don't think a lot of people make at other schools because we don't, like, other schools don't have a business school per se. But I guess the thing is just kind of, are you going to like go into these careers or are you going to do something completely different?
Okay, fantastic. Staying true to your passion and not getting carried away, Karthik, you're saying is something like an unsaid rule at Penn. Okay. Um, how challenging or rigorous did you find the courses in the first year? Now that, of course, you've completed the first year, which are the classes that students find most challenging in that transition?
Right. So, I mean, Penn is known for the really rigorous math courses that it has at the beginning. So some of the intro classes are known to be difficult. And it is like a somewhat like level, like it's like an increase in difficulty from, I guess, high school. But other than that, I think the other classes are kind of fine. And if you've done, like I've done the IB curriculum and I've like done a lot of debating, so a lot of the humanities classes were really easy for me. But I think some classes can be hard. But they're not like you can still do really well at them, I think, if you just put in the work.
Okay. Karthik, even I've heard, students completing after that first year or second year at college, they really kind of emphasize on the importance of writing. And I think that is what, college, the essay process starts gearing and preparing you towards. So can you share a little bit on why writing as a skill is so important when you're starting off college?
Yeah, I mean, I think every college that know of in the US has a writing requirement. So they have a mandatory writing seminar or something like that that you have to take. So you are like everybody, no matter what major you're doing, if you're in engineering, you still have to take that class. So I think it's important for that reason, but also because the way that a lot of these classes in the US work is that you have essays, you have exams where there's a lot more writing than you would traditionally be used to if you did an Indian curriculum like CBSE. So I think writing is important because this is what they kind of test.
Fantastic. Does Penn have a pressure to perform sort of environment, considering, IBs definitely have student bodies of brilliant achievers, or is that just a perception? Can you help share a little on that front?
So I think there is this perception that Penn is cutthroat and there's a lot of competition. I think that's not true. I have met a lot of people who collaborate, who help, study for exams together. Nobody's because I mean it's such a big university that everybody's doing something different, and so nobody's like competing for the same thing. Or I mean, obviously to get into clubs and things like that is really competitive, but academically, I don't think it's like that at all.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. As a rising sophomore, what were your general education requirements that you completed and fulfilled this year? Did you enjoy them, and how do you feel they overall helped you? Because general education requirements for our families, just future applicants to know, is one of the key and critical components of the liberal arts education in the US. So, Karthik, can you share a little bit on that front?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think the first thing was the writing seminar requirement. So a lot of people don't really like this class at Penn because it is it's cumbersome. But there is a way to get out of that, which is basically we have the school newspaper, so the Daily Pennsylvanian. So if you are a writer at that newspaper for like I think more than like for like at least 2 semesters, you get that requirement waived. So a lot of people like to do that because it's more fun writing articles than, you know, writing white papers, I think. So that's one thing. So Penn does offer that flexibility with some of those general education requirements. The second thing is the way that the general education requirements work is they're not just looking at skills, so they're not just like, okay, you need something in like logic, something in like analytical reasoning, something in creative thinking. Like they also are trying to build I guess it's more like humanities based, like so they're looking for like there's like an African American and minorities like requirement, like something about that, or like a US culture requirement, or something about science, like a science requirement. So there's stuff like natural sciences, and or like philosophy. So there are these different, like, I guess you could say broader, like subject themes that you also have to do it in. And so I picked this class called the History of American Law, and I really enjoyed that class. And the professor, invited me to her house, and I, was introduced to her, like her children, and it was just genuinely one of the best classes I've ever taken at Penn. I just really looked forward to that class every day. I would just be like, when is my class? When's my like next History of American Law class? Especially because I didn't get to do history in school at all, even though I really wanted to, because I've like, Indian parents, like you have to do like science-based subjects. So I really like that. The professor also really liked me. She gave me a free, like her book, the book that she wrote as like a gift, because she was really impressed with my like my exam performance in that class. So I guess like some of these like gen ed requirements are really fun, and they are kind of like trying to nudge you to that major. So like it's trying to be like, hey, like you should do history. Like I'm not considering history, but like it was still really fun to do. So I guess that's the like the second thing. The third is there is a language requirement as well. So I was really lucky that there was Telugu offered at Penn, which isn't offered at any other, I guess you could say, like major like top US university. So that's because Penn has a South Asia Studies department. And so you have to like know a language of like at a certain proficiency level to place out of it. You have to take like at least a semester. So I was able to take Telugu, and it was a breeze for me. So there is that option, that I never knew existed.
Thanks, Karthik, for sharing that. Can you help the future applicants understand that why and how important? What is the importance of these general education requirements? What is the goal behind it? Uh, how has it helped you also overall?
Exactly. I think the general education requirements are what make an Ivy League an Ivy League. I mean, if you look at other universities, a lot of the classes you take are only geared to that major. The point of the general education requirements is to build interdisciplinary skills, right? Like a lot of the kinds of activities that people do after like graduating, like if it's starting a company or a business, they require more than just technical expertise in that domain. You need to know other skills as well. So I guess it kind of like shapes you to like shapes you for the real world. But also like a lot of people don't really know what they're interested in, don't really know what they're good at. Like you're only 18, you're barely a formed human being. So kind of forcing students to get out of their comfort zone is something that I think these general education requirements do. And look, who knows? Like I might, do like a minor in history or like a legal studies. Like who knows? Like it's just like because of this mandatory requirement, I took the class, and now I'm actually really liking the subject.
Absolutely. So again, very rightly pointed by Karthik that, the general education requirements not only help you in evolving as a well-rounded individual, but it'll nudge you towards things that you probably wouldn't have explored, and then you really kind of enjoy them, and you never know where that takes you. And that's, again, the beauty of, the liberal arts education, which is interdisciplinary, but at the same time ensures that you are evolving as a well-rounded individual. Karthik, you were initially interested in economics and now you're gearing towards computer science. So can you shed some light on the flexibility in terms of changing majors and switching majors at Penn? How easy or difficult is it that?
I think it's a lot easier than people think. I mean, I think it's not as easy as like let's say Harvard, where they don't have like a separate like an engineering department and like a separate I get like they don't have a business school, for example. So I mean, Penn does have like different departments. So you would have to like transfer. But it's quite easy, especially for computer science. Like they understand this is something a lot of people are interested in. So they let you just like add that major on without having to even like transfer to the engineering school. So it's quite easy.
Okay, so it's flexible enough that even if a student wants to pursue engineering, that switch probably would have some requirements, but it's possible.
Yeah, and like I know like plenty of Wharton students who have only done engineering classes so far and are like, oh, I need to do my Wharton requirements. So like it is very flexible.
Oh, that's really good to know. What is one hidden secret about Penn that you would like to now share, uh, now that you've completed, your freshman?
I mean, there are a lot of hidden secrets. I think one is the location is just fantastic. Like I don't think anything matches because it's located right like midway. I mean, not really midway, but like somewhat midway between New York and DC. I think Kritin was talking about like Columbia being in New York, but look, Penn is just an hour away by train. So, I mean, it's not even that far. I mean, the number of times I've been to New York or DC, during my time, like you just get on a train and you're there in an instant over the weekend. So it's actually really, really nice that it has that connectivity more so than like Dartmouth or some of these other places.
Karthik, you had mentioned to me about languages, um, the number of languages offered at Penn. Do you want to kind of share a little bit on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that the language department is really good at Penn. So a lot of people enjoy the language classes that they take, and there are many languages. Like as I said, there's like, I mean, there's not just Telugu. There's Kannada. I remember looking at like someone teaching Kannada in like a different classroom in Van Pelt, which is the library where these classes happen. So there are many languages, and some people take language classes even after they fulfill their requirement, just because they're so like interested in the class. And there's obviously like other stuff like like you could get like a scholarship if you get to like a certain level for like at least in the South Asia department. So some people do it for that. But a lot of them like some of the other kids I mean a lot of them are like I guess you could say like born and raised in America but want to learn their mother tongue. So they like add classes and Penn allows you to take like as many credits as you want. Like I guess there's like a limit, like a hard threshold, but like people do take like Telugu every semester. You know what I mean? Like uh because they want to learn that language and become fluent.
Fantastic. So, okay, with that, we are coming towards the tail end of our webinar, and I would love for each of y'all, if y'all had one piece of advice for future applicants, what would that be? Let's start with you, Kritin.
Um, it's a difficult question. I would say that in your essays, you have like all your activities and stuff you want to highlight, but along with that, make sure you highlight your sort of your long-term goal or what you're aspiring towards. Um, because these schools want students who who are active, like who are constantly trying new things, but they also want students who use their resources as a stepping stone to get to their own dreams.
Fantastic. That's a really great piece of advice, that try to communicate your future goals, because that's what colleges want to see, that where do you want to take your education? How is it going to help you in your long-term plan? Rachel, your piece of advice?
I think it's not to stress about everything you read online and everything you hear from everybody else. I think even before, so for me, as I had not worked with the Red Pen before, I had seen a million videos online. Everybody was telling me something different. And I think it really stresses you, because ultimately, if you like coming from Austria, where many of like the classic activities are not necessarily offered, I think you really have to look at your individual situation and find your own story and not do what everybody else is doing. And that's what truly will help you in the end.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Ananyaa, over to you. Your piece of advice for future aspirants?
What I would say is, I think like when you look at the different aspects of your application, your activities, your essays, the LORs, I feel like when an admissions officer is reading it, it should all tell the story of the same person. It should doesn't mean it's repetitive. It should not be repetitive, but they should look at it and be like, okay, I'm seeing different aspects, but I know it's the same person. Like it should not like contradict each other. I think that's important.
That is so helpful, and that is such an amazing insight, Ananyaa, because we're always telling our families that the application form gives you various components to showcase various layers to yourself. But at the same time, there's got to be one thread that connects it and makes it a one tight, cohesive application, because it's one person, it's one individual that you're trying to let that admission officer, get a glimpse into. So thank you for sharing that. Karthik, your one piece of advice.
I mean, it's been a while since I've like applied to colleges, so I've had to like kind of think about what my advice would be. I think I guess it's really easy to stress out during this process and just always worry about like whether your application is good enough. Like some people are too afraid to even submit it. I think like you need to overcome that, and when you're like doing some of the activities that you're doing, like don't think about what looks good on an application, like everybody is unique. Like pick a theme, like pick something like a social cause or something that you really care about, and just go really deep and explore that and try to take it to like the maximum level that you can, and I think you'll be fine. Like whatever that is, whether it's like animal welfare or like like social justice, like anything. And it has to be a natural process. It's not something you can force, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karthik, for sharing that. So for the audience today, I hope you have walked away with a lot of, not only takeaways, but a lot of food for thought to reflect for the weekend. Do tune in again next Saturday, same time. We will be speaking to current year applicants successfully admitted to Singapore, Canada, UK, India. So a lot of important, again, takeaways if you're looking at other countries as well. Again, for families who have oldest children and are contemplating pursuing post-grad services, our post-grad team will again be presenting at 10 a.m. next Saturday. A Journey to College, similar format where you'll be hearing straight from the horse's mouth students themselves. So next Saturday, mark your calendars, 10 a.m. for our post-grad Journey to College, and 11:30 again with the undergrad Journey to College with current students talking about their various experiences. So thank you all for joining us. I hope this was a really helpful morning for you. And thank you, panelists. Wishing you all the very, very best. Thank you for trusting us in this journey as your partner and mentors in the higher education space. And we wish you all the very best. Have a lovely week.